The realm below the surface of the water, where the water remains in a natural state like in oceans, ponds, lakes, etc., form the underwater. Almost 3/4 of the surface of the Earth is covered by water. Humans are engaged in a number of activities conducted underwater like scuba diving, research, etc. But however, almost a majority of the underwater still remains unexplored and is expected to have several million undiscovered species of flora and fauna. Characteristics of underwater life. Man cannot survive underwater because there is too much pressure at that level, which makes breathing extremely difficult. The density of water also causes many difficulties at that level. As the underwater depth increases, the visible light starts diminishing. The color spectrum is speedily altered with increase in depth. In greater depths underwater, the temperature remains very low because of minimal heat energy reaching that level. Sound also travels almost 4 times faster in that level. Flora. The vast number of plant species underwater forms a beautiful ecosystem. The plants which stay underwater depend upon the light coming from the sun for their growth. They also draw the atmospheric carbon dioxide from the air above and convert them into oxygen. The flora below the surface of the water adds to the aesthetic beauty. These plants sometimes span vast lengths below the surface of the ocean. Fauna. The microscopic organisms which remain in the sunlit areas of the underwater surface are called phytoplankton. They depend upon the minerals for survival. Phytoplankton serves as the basic food of the aquatic animals. Other creatures existing underwater are fish, sharks, whales, sea snakes, jellyfish, smaller aquatic animals, etc. These creatures have built-in gills for breathing, and their eyes enable them to look forward as well as sideways. Some of the creatures found underwater are carnivorous in nature and eat other aquatic animals for their survival. Richness of underwater life. The life underwater is no less rich than the life on the surface of the water or the terrestrial life. The aesthetic beauty of underwater life is one of the prominent features. Coral reefs are splendid examples of the aesthetic beauty of underwater life. These span the length, which extends to kilometers at a stretch. The underwater life also provides man with a variety of minerals and other resources for consumption. Terrestrial life has certain disadvantages which are absent in the life underwater. Life underwater is one of the most exciting things in the world. The same is characterized by plants which exist in a wide variety, aquatic animals which are both dangerous and sober, microscopic organisms which are the basic food of the animals. Even the largest mammal in the world, the blue whale, resides in the oceans. Thus, life underwater is a part of the life on Earth. The turquoise waters battered lightly against my sleek and pristine canoe, making it seesaw precariously as I maintained balance, like walking a slack rope. I calmly pulled on my blue spandex suit with practiced efficiency, and prepped my mini oxygen support before taking a scrutinizing look at the depth of the sea. Plush! I dived headfirst and broke the frothing barrier as the burbling of water covered my ears and I segued into another world. The water was cold. I could feel it around my face, but the suit trapped a flimsy layer of warm air that kept me snug. Looking through my crystal clear goggles as the radiance of the sun permeated the ocean floor, I could see underwater as clear as the morning sky. A couple of delicate strokes in my azure flippers propelled me towards the magnificent coral reef embedded at the bottom. Air bubbles kept obscuring my view as I took deep breaths that resonated in my ears like a sick person gasping for air. The reef was an underwater paradise. A large, living and breathing structure consisting of a plethora of unimaginable organisms that survived in harmony. It was pure aesthetic scenery. The base was a large structure resembling a huge porous rock, but it was barely perceivable. There was a lurid cornucopia of sea life riveted onto it. I could identify some crimson-red anemones that swayed from side to side as waves of current surged through the ocean floor. Some goldfish hidden with them, seeking succor from predators that wished to devour this divine being. A sea turtle gracefully swam up from behind. A patchy green shell that held a record of its growth and struggles, a dusky yellow body with a multitude of black spots interspersed along it. It was a survivor of the sea with its ability to live for decades amidst all the danger that lurked in every corner. A stingray had meticulously camouflaged itself under the fine grains of sand, waiting in ambush as a silvery gray salmon mindlessly drifted too close. A smoke of dust and the salmon lied convulsing in the sand, electrocuted by its deadly sting. The ocean covers 70% of Earth's surface. It contains about 1.35 billion cubic kilometers, 324 million cubic miles, of water, which is about 97% of all the water on Earth. The ocean makes all life on Earth possible, and makes the planet appear blue when viewed from space. Earth is the only planet in our solar system that is definitely known to contain liquid water. Although the ocean is one continuous body of water, oceanographers have divided it into 5 principal areas: the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic, and Southern Oceans. The Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans merge into icy waters around Antarctica. The ocean plays a vital role in climate and weather. The sun's heat causes water to evaporate, adding moisture to the air. The oceans provide most of this evaporated water. The water vapor condenses to form clouds, which release their moisture as rain or other kinds of precipitation. All life on Earth depends on this process, called the water cycle. The atmosphere receives much of its heat from the ocean. As the sun warms the water, the ocean transfers heat to the atmosphere. In turn, the atmosphere distributes the heat around the globe. Because water absorbs and loses heat more slowly than land masses, the ocean helps balance global temperatures by absorbing heat in the summer and releasing it in the winter. Without the ocean to help regulate global temperatures, Earth's climate would be bitterly cold. Ocean formation. After Earth began to form about 4.6 billion years ago, it gradually separated into layers of lighter and heavier rock. The lighter rock rose and formed Earth's crust. The heavier rock sank and formed Earth's core and mantle. The ocean's water came from rocks inside the newly forming Earth. As the molten rocks cooled, they released water vapor and other gases. Eventually, the water vapor condensed and covered the crust with a primitive ocean. Today, hot gases from the Earth's interior continue to produce new water at the bottom of the ocean. Ocean floor. Scientists began mapping the ocean floor in the 1920s. They used instruments called echo sounders, which measure water depths using sound waves. Echo sounders use sonar technology. Sonar is an acronym for sound navigation and ranging. The sonar showed that the ocean floor has dramatic physical features, including huge mountains, deep canyons, steep cliffs, and wide plains. live in the bathypelagic zone are small, but they often have huge mouths, sharp teeth, and expandable stomachs that let them eat any food that comes along. Most of this food comes from the remains of plants and animals drifting down from upper pelagic zones. Many bathypelagic animals do not have eyes because they are unneeded in the dark. Because the pressure is so great and it is so difficult to find nutrients, fish in the bathypelagic zone move slowly and have strong gills to extract oxygen from the water. The water at the bottom of the ocean, the abyssopelagic zone, 4, is very salty and cold, 2 degrees Celsius, or 35 degrees Fahrenheit. At depths up to 6,000 meters, 19,700 feet, the pressure is very strong, 11,000 pounds per square inch. This makes it impossible for most animals to live. Animals in this zone have bizarre adaptations to cope with their ecosystem. Many fish have jaws that look unhinged. The jaws allow them to drag their open mouth along the seafloor to find food, such as mussels, shrimp, and microscopic organisms. Many of the animals in this zone, including squid and fish, are bioluminescent. Bioluminescent organisms produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. A type of anglerfish, for example, has a glowing growth extending in front of its huge, toothy mouth. When smaller fish are attracted to the light, the anglerfish simply snaps its jaws to eat its prey. The deepest ocean zone, found in trenches and canyons, is called the hadopelagic zone, 5. Few organisms live here. They include tiny isopods, a type of crustacean related to crabs and shrimp. Invertebrates such as sponges and sea cucumbers thrive in the abyssopelagic and hadopelagic zones. Like many sea stars and jellyfish, these animals are almost entirely dependent on falling parts of dead or decaying plants and animals, called marine detritus. Not all bottom dwellers, however, depend on marine detritus. In 1977, oceanographers discovered a community of creatures on the ocean floor that feed on bacteria around openings called hydrothermal vents. These vents discharge superheated water enriched with minerals from Earth's interior. The minerals nourish unique bacteria, which in turn nourish creatures such as crabs, clams, and tube worms. Ocean currents. Currents are streams of water running through a larger body of water. Oceans, rivers, and streams have currents. The ocean's salinity and temperature and the coast's geographic features determine an ocean current's behavior. Earth's rotation and wind also influence ocean currents. Currents flowing near the surface transport heat from the tropics to the poles and move cooler water back toward the equator. This keeps the ocean from becoming extremely hot or cold. Deep, cold currents transport oxygen to organisms throughout the ocean. They also carry rich supplies of nutrients that all living things need. The nutrients come from plankton and the remains of other organisms that drift down and decay on the ocean floor. Along some coasts, winds and currents produce a phenomenon called upwelling. As winds push surface water away from shore, deep currents of cold water rise to take its place. This upwelling of deep water brings up nutrients that nourish new growth of plankton, providing food for fish. Ocean food chains constantly recycle food and energy this way. Some ocean currents are enormous and extremely powerful. One of the most powerful is the Gulf Stream, a warm surface current that originates in the tropical Caribbean Sea and flows northeast along the eastern coast of the United States. The Gulf Stream measures up to 80 kilometers, 50 miles, wide and is more than a kilometer, 3,281 feet, deep. Like other ocean currents, the Gulf Stream plays a major role in climate. As the current travels north, it transfers moisture from its warm tropical waters to the air above. Westerly, or prevailing, winds carry the warm, moist air to the British Isles and to Scandinavia, causing them to have milder winters than they otherwise would experience at their northern latitudes. Northern parts of Norway are near the Arctic Circle but remain ice-free for most of the year because of the Gulf Stream. The weather pattern known as El Niño includes a change to the Humboldt Current, also called the Peru Current, off the western coast of South America. In El Niño conditions, a current of warm surface water travels east along the equator and prevents the normal upwelling of the cold, nutrient-rich Humboldt Current. El Niño, which can devastate the fisheries of Peru and Ecuador, occurs every 2 to 7 years, usually in December. The paths of ocean currents are partially determined by Earth's rotation. This is known as the Coriolis effect. It causes large systems, such as winds and ocean currents that would normally move in a straight line, to veer to the right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. People and the ocean. For thousands of years, people have depended on the ocean as a source of food and as a route for trade and exploration. Today, people continue to travel on the ocean and rely on the resources it contains. Nations continue to negotiate how to determine the extent of their territory beyond the coast. The United Nations Law of the Sea Treaty established exclusive economic zones, EEZs, extending 200 nautical miles, 230 miles, beyond a nation's coastline. Even though some countries have not signed or ratified the treaty, including the US, it is regarded as standard. Russia has proposed extending its EEZ beyond 200 nautical miles because two mid-ocean ridges, the Lomonosov and Medvedev ridges, are extensions of the continental shelf belonging to Russia. This territory includes the North Pole. Russian explorers in a submersible vehicle planted a metal Russian flag on the disputed territory in 2007. Through the centuries, people have sailed the ocean on trade routes. Today, ships still carry most of the world's freight, particularly bulky goods such as machinery, grain, and oil. Ocean ports are areas of commerce and culture. Water and land transportation meet there, and so do people of different professions, business people who import and export goods and services, dock workers who load and unload cargo, and ship's crews. Ports also have a high concentration of migrants and immigrants with a wide variety of ethnicities, nationalities, languages, and religions. Important ports in the U.S. are New York/New Jersey and New Orleans. The busiest ports around the world include the Port of Shanghai in China and the Port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Ocean ports are also important for a nation's armed forces. Some ports are used exclusively for military purposes, although most share space with commercial businesses. "The sun never sets on the British Empire" is a phrase used to explain the scope of the Empire of Great Britain, mostly in the 19th century. Although based on the small European island nation of Great Britain, British military sea power extended its empire from Africa to the Americas, Asia, and Australia. Scientists and other experts hope the ocean will be used more widely as a source of renewable energy. Some countries have already harnessed the energy of ocean waves, temperature, currents, or tides to power turbines and generate electricity. One source of renewable energy are generators that are powered by tidal streams or ocean currents. They convert the movement of currents into energy. Ocean current generators have not been developed on a large scale, but are working in some places in Ireland and Norway. Some conservationists criticize the impact the large constructions have on the marine environment. Another source of renewable energy is ocean thermal energy conversion, OTEC. It uses the difference in temperature between the warm, surface water and cold, deep water to run an engine. OTEC facilities exist in places with significant differences in ocean depth, Japan, India, and the U.S. state of Hawaii, for instance. An emerging source of renewable energy is salinity gradient power, also known as osmotic power. It is an energy source that uses the power of fresh water entering into salt water. This technology is still being developed, but it has potential in delta areas where fresh river water is constantly interacting with the ocean.